Hello and welcome back to Life Coaching on the Move podcast. I am Dawn, your pocket life coach. That's how I've decided I like to see myself. Welcome to this podcast and thank you so much for choosing this one as opposed to something else. I don't know where I'm joining you, whether you're driving, on the treadmill, walking your dog, sat having a cup of tea, but whatever you're doing, I'm privileged that you've chosen this podcast. Now, welcome back to my regular listeners, and if you're new, I do this on the go. Literally, it's called Life Coaching on the Move, and I'm generally on the move as well. Currently, I'm walking through the woods with my dog, as you can hear with the bird song. That is true bird song. I have not added it in the background. This is an authentic podcast. I don't edit it. I just speak from the heart. So, without any wasted time, let's launch straight in. Now, in earlier podcasts, I've talked about the importance of our mindset, and that our mindset can affect how we feel, what we do, what we achieve, or what we don't achieve and what we don't do, etc., etc., and how important the mind is over the body. Or that they're one big picture, the mind and body influence each other, where they're not separate entities. But then the mind is incredibly powerful over the body. And so if we are in the right mindset, that's going to be helpful for our confidence, for our achievements, for our goals, for our relationships, for our health, our well-being, our sleep, everything. So I have talked about and do talk a lot about how important it is that we get into the right mindset. Now, one question that I'm often asked by new clients when they first make contact is it too late to change? Am I too old to change? They're the common questions that I get. And absolutely no, it's never, ever, ever too late. Why? Well, because we change all the time. Our cells regenerate all the time. Our skin is different from 1 month to the next. We've never got the same cells or the same layer of skin. Everything regenerates and changes and replenishes. And that's the same with our thoughts. Our thoughts are very, very flexible and fluid, and they are not pre-programmed. They are not set in stone. They are not governed by somebody else. When nobody else is pulling our strings, we can choose how we're thinking and what we're thinking and what we give energy to in our minds and what we decide to let go. They'll pop into our brains. We'll get the most random thoughts. We all do get the most bizarre thoughts at times. But the trick is not giving them the space, the energy, the focus, and not letting them grow, develop and evolve into something real. It's just noticing them and letting them go, or allowing them to if they're good and helpful and instrumental in pushing us forward. So I may have mentioned this before in other podcasts, but it depends who we read or who we listen to. Different experts call it different things. Some people call that voice in our head the chatterbox. Some people call it the parrot on your shoulder, the monkey on your back, the chimp. Or others call it internal dialogue. The one I love most is the jailer in your head. Because I think it can be a bit of a jailer. That voice can keep us in our self-imposed prison at times, or it can set us free. And I think that's quite a powerful thought, that my chatterbox or my voice in my head is either jailing me or it's freeing me. I do find that very, very powerful. Now, I got that from a book. I think the book was called Just Get On With It. I will look into that actually and put that on another podcast, just check it out. But I'm certain if anybody Googles the jailer in their head, it will come up as that book. Anyway, I'm going to just share a story of how I discovered that in order to bring it all full circle, today's podcast, onto my key takeaway. So you know me, I love to tell stories because I think it's a powerful way of getting it to all sort of stick in our minds, become real and alive, and not just be theory. So bear with. This is one of my own stories. It's not a client. It goes back to a good few years ago, actually, when the children were very young. They were about 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, something like that. And we were lucky enough to be on a holiday, one of these sort of complexes or sites, where all the children join kids clubs or make friends, loads of kids around, and entertainment in the evenings and so on. And so the boys had run off and they'd made friends with other boys and were playing football on the grass. I was on the sun lounger. We were on the sun loungers topping up our tans and reading. And I was reading all about the jailer in your head, because it's not work for me, it's my passion. And I had some time and was relaxing. So I'm reading about this research. And the writer was saying that the jailer in our head frees us or not, and that we can change it. It is not in control of us, that in fact it's the opposite way around. We are in control of it. We are in control of that voice. So I'm reading this and soaking it all up, at which point my 5 or 6-year-old came running across the grass and said, "Mummy, you know the flying trapeze act that we watched last night, because they had entertainment every evening on this site, and it was a proper full-size flying trapeze. Full size, I mean the circus size, really, really high. Must be, I don't know, 40, 50 feet, something like that." I said yes, and he said, "Well, the kids club are allowed to do it. I'm going to go up, will you come and watch me?" Just like a 5 or 6-year-old does. Watch me, and it's a very proud moment. So I took the video camera. It was less than about us taking our phones. It was more about the separate video camera, and filmed him. And he was harnessed on. He had a harness, so, and the safety net was probably as high as the ceiling of a room. That was the safety net. So a good, I don't know, 10 feet. So he had to go up this big upright metal ladder, not leaning against anything, bolt upright, go right up to the very top. In fact, I'm in woods now with pine trees, and it was sort of the height of these really high pine trees in this foresty wood. And he was fearless. I was so proud. Didn't hesitate. He shot up there like a rat up a drain pipe. No hesitation whatsoever. Got to the top, he was unclipped and lifted over onto a platform, like a hanging platform where the circus crew were, and they lifted him across, and then the guy on the ground had a long rope and pulled the swing from the ground across to him, and they lifted him up so that his hands reached the swing, gripped hold of it, and then they released him, and he did 2 huge sweeps, lengths, hair blowing in the wind, of this flying trapeze sort of safety net, from one side to the other, 2 of those. And then they shouted, "Knees up," so he put his knees up and over, hands off, so he's now upside down swinging and loving every second of it. And they shouted, "Shout, I love the circus, I love the circus." This little voice came. Very sweet, and filmed it all, and then he eventually sort of slid his legs off, bounced down into the massive safety net, a few bounces, crawled across to the edge, did a somersault down onto the mats below where the guy on the ground unharnessed him, and it was great. Very proud moment. Until he said the words, "Mummy, at 4 o'clock the grown-ups are allowed to do it, so you could have a go." At which point I instinctively, knee-jerk response without any thought or consideration, immediately replied, "Oh, no, Mummy doesn't do heights. Anyway, see you later." And off he went to play with his friends in the football. And I got back to the sun lounger and carried on reading all about the jailer in your head. So I'm reading, and it's saying, all about, the jailer in the head kicks in. We sometimes don't even question it. It's an automatic thought or habit thinking, and we don't stop to question these sorts of things. We just accept them. I'm going to divert my course because I've just found some tree surgeons working in the wood, and you won't be able to hear me. This is very authentic podcast. So I'm reading this content and thinking, what have I just done? Not only have I just given him a very mixed parenting message there, that it's okay for you to go up and risk your life, but mummy's far too precious to do that. What kind of bad parenting is that? Terrible. So first I had huge guilt about, oh my word, that's very poor parenting. And secondly, I realised that if I'm ever going to use all of this research, which at the time was really impressing me and exciting me, I realised I was going to actually have to try it out for myself. Otherwise, I would never be able to use it. And in that moment of reading the content of we are in control, we can still choose to override it no matter what it says, I realised I was going to have to do the flying trapeze. So it obviously ruined the rest of that day. I was watching my watch all the time, couldn't properly relax, but carried on reading the material, dreading the 4 o'clock deadline. And before I knew it, it was 4 o'clock. Now, if anyone could have seen me, my kneecaps were shaking. I could not keep my knees still. They were completely out of control. We were less harnessed on, actually. I don't think we were properly harnessed or attached anyway until we got up onto the platform, the adults. That was my excuse for the fear anyway. But I took one step at a time up that ladder. And if anyone could have heard what was going on in my head, it was like a scene out of a comedy. There were two voices, as there often is. Part of me, one part was saying, obviously the jailer was saying, you don't have to do this, you can go straight back down now, it doesn't matter. And my rational part of my brain, or my human, or whatever you want to call it, depending on which research you like, was saying, I know what you're trying to do, just shut. I thank you very much for trying to keep me safe, but you're not keeping me in a jail, I'm going to do it. And the other one's kicking in, no, you don't have to do this, you can go back down again, you don't want to do this. Yes, I am going to do this, shut up, stop talking to me. I'm going to do it, you just watch me. That kind of thought was going on in my head. It was like a crazy woman. But I did it, and I got to the top. I couldn't speak to the circus crew at the top when they tried to chat to me. My mouth was so bone dry I couldn't swallow. I have never been so scared in all my life. It was so high up. You could see for miles at the top there, across the water. I mean, it was beautiful, and but terrifying at the same time. Anyway, so they got me up, lifted me up onto the swing, and off I went. And it was the most tremendous experience. Not least of all because the adrenaline rush, huge amount of adrenaline. And actually it was great fun. And I would never ever have experienced that if I had just allowed my jailer to take over without me questioning it. So on the one hand, it was brilliant because it was just an awesome experience. On the other, and perhaps much more powerfully so, it was brilliant because it taught me, oh my word, I am in control. I am the one that decides. I am the one in the driving seat of what I do and don't do. Not that voice that kicks in to try and keep me safe, in air quotes, because is it safe or is it just bored, stuck, safe in a jail? I mean, who wants to be in a prison jail eating slop and going nowhere and staying stuck and constrained? I mean, that's a horrible, horrible feeling, horrible realisation. And so I did it, I cracked it, and I proved to myself that the research is absolutely right. It will kick in, and the key takeaway that I'm coming to slowly with this story is that the voice will try and keep you safe. It will try and keep you in the familiar and the comfortable and where you best know, and without question. So that's great. We can stay there if we want. And I could have stayed there. But what I always say to people, my clients, is the first is always worst. The first time we try something is the scariest. The first time we stand up on stage and speak, or the first podcast I did, or the first date that you go on, or your first day at big school. We never forget that, first day at college or first day at uni. They're terrifying, aren't they? First day at work, your new job. When you get about 20 days in, you're actually almost automatically doing it now with very little thought, certainly very little nerves. You know the ropes, etc., as we've said in previous podcasts. So, what the key takeaway here is, we can change that voice or ignore it or choose to mute it, whatever we have to do. Some clients have great visualizations in their minds because all our brains work differently. Some of my clients see themselves muting that voice, or that some visualize a parrot sat on their shoulder and them grabbing its beak like that. I can't remember what, basil brush or something, grabbing its beak and just say, shh, I know what you're trying to do. Don't do it. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take this job. I'm going on this date. What's the worst that could happen? So on and so on and so on. So the point is, it will try and do it. It will kick in, particularly at first when you decide that you're going to start changing this. It will definitely kick in. If you're listening to the chimp paradox, it will be that little monkey will be jumping up and down and screeching to try and keep you safe. But that doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it what you consciously choose that you want for yourself. In fact, actually, I would almost say that scary is good. Scare yourself. Do something. I think we did this last week. Last week's podcast was all about definitely scare yourself and get yourself out of your comfort zone. It means you're alive. It means you're growing. It means you're expanding and developing and going forward. So, in terms of the flying trapeze, you can have your own flying trapeze at any point. And once you've done it once, I am in such undergrowth here, I'm stuck, trees fallen down, I've got to go around it. Then it's easier the second time. So then a few years later, when we were on a trip in New Zealand, in apparently, as they advertised it, the highest zip wire in the world, a 4-seater zip wire, which was off a mountainside. We had gone on a coach ride up this mountain to the top where the zip wire started, and it was above the mountain to the other side, to the other one, above a pine forest of trees. We were so high up and went so fast. I mean, my boys were they were older, taking the mick out of me. You're going to bail, aren't you, Mum? You're not going to do it, are you? But there was no question in my mind of whether I would do it or not, because once you've stretched this, you can keep reverting back to that success, almost like a bank account. You've banked it, it's a credit. So although at the zip wire, yes, my mouth was dry, yes, my heart was beating, but I knew I can do this. I've overcome it once, I could do it again. I just have to just do it, which is the title of the book, I believe. Just do it, just get on with it. Minimise the thought and get on with the action. Because actually, confidence, which is what we're talking about mostly here on this podcast, is a mindset. We can think ourselves confident, but also, so the mindset begets confidence, but also action begets confidence. So not only can we use the tool of thinking confidently and thinking assertively and determined and driven with goals, we also need to back that up with action. We can't just think ourselves confident or think ourselves achieving and goal hitting or anything like that. We do need action. So we can minimise how much angst we give it, but we've got to take steps. So the key takeaway for today is, yes, your mind might kick in. Your jailer might kick in and tell you things, but you are in control of it. That's the overriding takeaway from today, that you're in the driving seat. It will do it. We won't be able to stop it yet. But the more you override it or thank it or change it or ignore it or quieten it and put it on mute or Just say, shh, I know what you're doing, but I'm going to do it anyway, and you override it. The more you do that, actually, the more the jailer's voice changes anyway, and what they say will change. So I now don't say I'm scared of heights because I've overcome some major things with heights. So he doesn't even try and tell me that anymore. It's wasted breath. So my jailer, I don't know why I said he. If it's my voice, it's probably female. But anyway, I see my jailer as a male. So you ultimately will change it in the end, but not at first. The actions that you take will end up changing it. So on the back of last week's, we've got to keep moving forward. I recommend for your key takeaway that you notice what the jailer is saying. Notice what habitual thoughts you're running. I wouldn't even have noticed that he had said to me, oh, no, Mummy doesn't do heights. I wouldn't even have noticed that if I hadn't become aware of what my jailer was saying. I would have just said it, gone back to the sun lounger, and carried on sunbathing. Ignorance can sometimes be bliss, but not always. So we need to first notice what it's saying, and second, be absolutely certain in the knowledge that it isn't. That's not fact. That's not the law. That's not the way it has to be. Just because the jailer is saying that doesn't have to be your reality. Your conscious brain, or your human part of your brain, or your logical part, whatever you want to call it, can still decide and can override it and choose differently. So first, notice what it's saying. Maybe jot them down in your journal when you notice the kinds of things it's saying to you, and then consciously decide, really? Am I scared of heights? Do I want to be? Do I want to do this? Really? Am I shy all the time? Do I want to be shy? Do I want to overcome it and get bold and courageous and comfortable in my own skin and get out there and live more? Or do I want to just say, no, I won't speak up because I'm shy, or I'm too this, or I'm, no, I'm not going to go to that fitness class because I'm not into exercise, or I'm not fit like you. Says who? It's only a learning. It's only things we've learnt and practiced and taken on board. We can change that. I'm not sporty, or I'm not an extrovert. You go out, you're an extrovert, you like those sorts of things. I'm an introvert, prefer my own company. But we don't have to let those be reality. We don't have to let that hold us back. We can change it at any point. So whenever you hear yourself say, my alarm bells ring when I hear that, because people are labelling themselves. Not only are they labelling themselves, they're accepting it as fact. And it's not a fact, because we can change those beliefs and those realities at any point that we decide. The key is making that decision first. Once we've decided that, then we need some action, little steps if necessary, or big steps, or a combination, but steps we need to take, and then build on them. We have talked in previous podcasts about being your own coach, and after you've taken some steps, then sitting down and reviewing, how did that go? What did I do well? What could I do differently next time? And build on it. Not beating yourself up and criticising yourself, but instead coaching yourself about what went well and do more of, what didn't go quite so well, do less of, and build and grow and move forward and get stronger and stronger and more learned in that area and better at it. And before you know it, that is your reality. So don't give in to the label of shy or unsporty or unfit, or yeah, but you're academic, you like reading, don't you? Or you and that's what we often do. We compare ourselves with others and put them up on a pedestal and put ourselves down with almost the opposite. So we've got to stop being our own victim and be victorious. Decide, I don't want to be my own victim. I want to rise above this. I want to change, develop and grow. Expand, open up my mind, learn, research, read around the subject, get to know, watch others and how they do it. Notice how somebody else does it and what do they do. And I'm going to try a little bit of that mimicking others or modelling others, those sorts of things. So really, really, really just want this week to be more about inspiring you to continue to grow, more about inspiring you to continue to believe that you can grow and that you can do things about this, anything, whether it's health, weight, fitness, relationships, social, work, anything. You can consciously decide and consciously do stuff about it, because we are in the driving seat of our lives. We are not the passenger. Or, you know, if we're in a boat, yes, if we sit in a little boat and we don't paddle with the oars or do anything, the wind, the current, we will get somewhere, we'll drift and it will float somewhere. That's great. But really, do we want to drift? Do we want to float? Or do we want to decide where we want to go and make that happen? Get there in the time that we want to get there and feel the way we want to feel. So, it was just a little inspirational boost today, a little tonic to perk you up, pep you up. I think we've talked about the fact that we're getting to the latter part, a quarter of the year. So this is just another little tool in your box to make that happen. You've got 3-4 months. If we can end this year on a high, most people start the year in January. I've got to stop doing this, I've got to give up that, I've got to lose some weight, I've got to start getting fit. We actually start the year usually on the back foot. We've gained weight, we've lost our fitness, we're on a bit of a hamster wheel with our job, we've lost our motivation, etc., etc. So we start the new year sort of almost in a deficit. And so we're almost sort of clawing back what we've lost over the last few months. Finances, everything. Well, I think that's natural. But instead, I think if you could be working on it all now in September, October, building on it, getting goals, getting a plan, getting some actions in place, and some fitness in there, and the weight that you want, and the mental health that you want, and the career, etc. Then you start January on a high, and it's more a case of building it further, more a case of doing more of what's working, and putting other things in there and finding out what else could work and adding to it, rather than having to start in that deficit and try and claw it all back and hope that by March we've got back the same weight or the same finances and the same fitness, and then we might start to grow. I think with benefit of foresight that we've got now in this time, let's not do that. Let's not lose everything that we've been working on through the year and then try and claw it back. Let's build on September, October, November. Yeah, have a great Christmas and enjoy yourself, but we can continue to grow now, continue to keep our vitamin D up, our mood up, our outlook, our determination, and keep going so that January we hit the road running. We hit it ready, we hit the new year ready with some gusto and with some excitement and some enthusiasm and energy, rather than that January the 2nd or whatever date it is, we're back and work that oof feeling. Oh no. Okay, so I'm going to stop preaching. Good luck. I want this week for you, if you fancy, to notice what your head is saying, notice what the jailer's saying, and decide differently. Just take the wheel. Get the map. You're writing the map. Write the address of where you want to go. Take the wheel and take charge, and drop me an email if you fancy sharing it. Then do Dawn at milestone-coaching.co.uk, or visit the website www.milestone-coaching.co.uk. By the way, there are 2 online programs there available on sale for you to purchase and complete, take part in your own time, or on behalf of one of your team members if you've got a team and somebody's struggling, or on behalf of a loved one if you want to. because one's a shorter one. It's on time management. We're packed with time management techniques, strategies to get you a lot more time out of each day, to improve your productivity, your output, your approach, everything. It shouldn't be called time management, actually. It could be called self-management, because we can't change time. We just change ourselves and what we're doing. So it's changing your approach, or the person that's taking part in the program. So they can do it at home or at work without losing time on an all-day time management workshop and costing a fortune. They purchase it into their inbox and they do it in their time, at home or work or in the boardroom or something. The second one is a much longer program, because it needs to be. It's a much bigger subject. It's stress management, particularly for this time of year. I know that with my clients, stress goes up for so many reasons. So it's a brilliant program. Everything is thrown into that. It's 7 modules. It is, I don't go so far as to apologise for this, but I would say it is potentially life-changing. There is so much in there, so many different parts of the modules. Each of them are standalone modules by themselves, although it comes as a whole, over a 7, 8, 9 week period. So it's a perfect time of year to do that, or to purchase it for a loved one if they're struggling. So go on the website. Those online programs are there. And drop me a line if there's a subject you would like me to cover. All the best for a really, really strong, confident, determined, focused and moving forward week. Good luck to you all, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Bye for now.